The ongoing looting and unrest in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng will have devastating implications for South Africa's future investments. Now, the proudly South African organization says it is concerned that the unrest will make it harder for the country to attract global investments, as the uncertainty does not bode well for the country. Proudly South Africa CEO Eustace Mashimbia, and he says that it is concerning about the unrest in the country is concerning, I should say, and it will dent the country's image in the global community. Let's listen in.
We can only hope that those who are planning to still invest in South Africa are not discouraged by this, and I think that is our worst fear, that the president, together with his investment team and some government departments and agencies, as well as those in the private sector who are mobilizing for investment, both from within South Africa as well as from outside of South Africa, will not see all the work that they put in go to waste. Because if you think about it, who wants to invest in an environment where all that facility and all those facilities that you're going to put in place, all that infrastructure that you're going to deploy in the country will go up in flames? And we are hoping that the likes of Unilever that you spoke about, the likes of Toyota, they stay operational. They keep their operations in the country intact. Because if you think about it, I mean, and I'm talking confidently about those two, because Unilever is a member of Paris African, and we are in many talks, especially right now with Toyota, especially because of the master plan in the automotive industry. Both those are companies that have, as part of their values, especially now, and that's why we work with them, part of their value system is that they are going to increase levels of local content. So the raw materials and components that they utilize in manufacturing the products that they bring to us as consumers are going to be predominantly sourced locally.
Well, let's talk more about how the unrest in KwaZulu-Natal and in the Gauteng province could potentially affect investors' views of the country. And we're joined by the director at Waymaker Trade Solutions, Thina Nodada, who speaks to us in Queenstown, that's in the Eastern Cape province. Mr. Nodada, thank you very much for your time. International trade in the country, could that be affected by the image that investors would have seen beamed across the globe as a result of the recent unrest here?
Okay. Morning, Koli, and thank you for having me today. Yes, this morning is a bit of a tough one. I'm going to be dropping a couple of F-bombs as we go ahead. So I don't know if you want me to start with them right now, or I should just bring them in.
I would urge you very calmly and pleading with you to not drop those F-bombs. But just tell us how bad the situation is looking in terms of the country's image and whether or not we can attract investment.
No, definitely. Thank you very much, Koli. And jokes aside, let's get going now. So my name is Thina Nodada, as you mentioned, Director of Waymaker Trade Solutions. I'm in Queenstown right now, but we're actually based in Rivonia, Johannesburg, and we specialize in international trade. So what we need to look at here, Koli, initially is, if we look at it from an investment perspective and then the pure supply chain of how goods move and how cargo moves around South Africa and around SADC. Well, this has all entirely been affected. What I'm going to do is let me start with the investment side. So you will know that from an investment side, I'm going to look at it from a logistics perspective and how it affects trade agreements. So we all know that we've got the Africa Continental Free Trade Area that has been launched, and for many years we've been a member of AGOA. Now, the AGOA is the Africa Growth Opportunity Act, and it's basically a trade agreement that Africa has with the United States of America to encourage trade between South Africa and the United States of America, and encourage imports into the United States at a duty-free rate for most for most products. So one of the key things that allow the people to keep their membership within AGOA is to have a stable economic and political climate.
Yeah.
So when the political climate is affected, it causes a tension. And in my opinion, if this is a situation, these riots are something that we see and allow to go on for much longer than it's been now, I mean, we're almost reaching a week, it could bring attention from the United States, for example, to say, you know, you guys need to sort this out, because we would actually be seen as politically unstable. So that's one of the ways. And then if you look at it now from a pure international trade supply chain perspective, you have to take into consideration that the Durban harbor has been devastated by the riots. Now, when you devastate that harbor alone, that is the harbor that supplies the N3 route, one of the busiest routes that we have in Africa. So you need trucks to get cargo out of the port. You need trucks to get cargo into the port, and you need trucks to get cargo out of the ports. So when you've got fuel shortages, you've got over 40 trucks that have been burnt in this last week. And we must remember now, you know, the cargo value on a truck is valued to from anything from about 3 to 10 million rand. So transporters are now hesitant to put their trucks on the road because of these riots. So this has now caused a backlog at the port. So the vessels that had already docked and were offloading, the cargo can't get out the port. And some of this cargo, we must remember now, is FMCG. So some of this cargo can go off, okay? The other thing that we need to remember here is that you have a specific amount of time after your cargo has been offloaded at the port to actually get it out of the port. So now there's going to be extra warehousing costs. And we've seen alone between Pietermaritzburg and Durban with the value warehouse being burnt. So it's not only retailers that have been burnt. We've heard of Bidvest and Value Logistics being hit. So you've got problems of no transportation, and you've actually got a shortage in warehousing, or at least, let's say, buyers need to now find other alternatives.
Yeah.
So this will push up the costs. This will push up costs on the price of goods and even the prices of food. So, yeah, in that sense, I think it's been quite devastating. We're not back on it yet.
Yeah.
And you know, Xoli, one of the things that are very important to understand is that our neighboring countries, Lesotho, Swaziland, Botswana, Zimbabwe, if you look at trade statistics, they import over 70% of their imports from South Africa. So once you've now almost brought the N3 to a halt, then you're kind of also doing quite a lot to the exports and products going out to our neighboring countries, including even your Mozambique. So it's quite a devastating situation. More so, I'd say, for SADC and the Southern African Customs Union, definitely so, international trade perspective. But all in all, Xoli, I wouldn't say it's all doom and gloom. I think if our president and, you know, we can get some form of leadership and this can come to under some level of control,
sure,
then the supply chains eventually will, you know, get running again. But at the moment, it's quite devastating. And this is also implemented by the closures of the stores as well. So there's a lot of stores that are closed, less trucks, less transporters willing to put their drivers on the road. So this now affects the entire country as well, because a lot of supply comes from Johannesburg and Durban to your smaller, you know, the Eastern Cape and Northwest and everywhere else. So,
okay. All right. Thina, just very briefly, finally, we know that the president has been on this, I think, $100 billion investment drive, and there has been lots of pledges thus far. Is that at risk? And if it is, how urgent is it for him to come out and reassure that investor community?
No, it's definitely at risk, because it's about the political stability. And the fact that this is also linked to the outgoing, the previous president, Jacob Zuma, directly now puts the ANC and our government, not our government, but our political stability as a country in life. So this is key, because those investors probably are going to say to themselves, okay, so this happened now, say it stops in 2 weeks, in a week's time, or it stops today. How do we know it's not going to happen in a year's time? Those are the questions that we will have to be able to answer, and that's what I think the president and everybody, his team, will have to be able to say, look, these were the causes, and this is how we are addressing the causes, to give investors confidence, because I think the word we must put emphasis on there is investor confidence. They need to be confident in us, and if they put their money in our country, will they make returns on their investments, or is there a concern that this looting could happen again, as has been seen and has had a devastating impact on domestic markets and our suppliers that we import from internationally? This is something that has affected us, not just here at home, but also affected us internationally.
Thina Nodada, thank you very much for that informative session there. He is with the Waymaker Trade Solutions director there. Thanks indeed for your time and letting us in on what investors are possibly thinking at this time.